morning. I'm Nancy Watley, and I'm chair of the Terry Third Thursday Committee for the Terry Alumni Relations Board, and I would like to welcome you this morning. I'm here filling in for Dean Ayers, who could not be here. So we would like to welcome you to the TEAC, as we refer to it. It's the Terry Executive Education Center, and we host this event every month, obviously on the third Thursday of every month. So it is our base for a lot of our alumni and executive education here in Atlanta. So thank you for coming. I'd like to introduce our sponsors. We have a lot of support from a lot of folks, and those corporate sponsors are Bank of North Georgia. If you guys could give them a round of applause. And then we have two media sponsors, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and Public Broadcasting Atlanta, WABE. If y'all could give them a round of applause. Normally, I tell you what is going to happen next month, but we take the month of July off, so we will not be here in July. But on August the 17th, we will welcome Rick Smith, who is the CEO of Equifax. So I hope you will attend and tell all your friends to come. So today, it is my honor, and I am thrilled because we have been wanting to have more women CEOs come and speak to us. But it's my honor to introduce today's speaker, Nancy Juneau, who is the founder, CEO, and principal of Juneau Construction Company. A woman, construction, how's that? Nancy and her husband Les founded Juneau Construction Company in 1997, and they've grown the company into the top female-owned construction firm in Georgia. In her many roles, Nancy oversees and manages all business development, human resources, and daily corporate functions. She's involved in all aspects of running Juneau Construction Company, including recruiting at college campuses, interviewing potential employees, overseeing weekly officer meetings, attending owners' meetings, to reviewing monthly bonding reports. That just sounds overwhelming. A 30-year veteran of the construction industry, Juneau is recognized both as a successful business owner and for her leadership and contributions to business and community organizations, particularly in the realm of higher education. Nancy's also known for her community involvement. She currently serves on the board at Gwinnett Technical College and the Georgia Independent College Association. As a widely known advocate of women in construction, she regularly speaks at events such as the Norfolk Southern Corporation Women's Network Group and the ENR Groundbreaking Women in Construction Conference. Her topic this morning is an unconventional path to leadership, so help me welcome Nancy Juneau.
I'll go this way. Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Oh, good, I'm live. So thank you for that kind introduction, and I'm really excited. I was telling Christine and Nancy earlier, really excited to be here and talking amongst Bulldogs. And I have to say that I have cheated on Georgia. So I am a Georgia graduate. I have an education degree from UGA, and that's something I'm very, very proud of, extremely proud of my degree and that I'm a Bulldog. But I did speak at Georgia Tech. I know it's painful. Their client, we build on their campus, so I kind of had to say yes. So I cheated on you guys, and I'm just coming clean. They have a construction management master's program, and one of their professors, who I worked with at Erie International before we started Juneau, asked me if I would consider speaking to their class, ironically about leadership, and I said yes, and it was actually a lot of fun. But so really what I wanted to do today is, you know, kind of take you through my path and just share some stories of how I went from, and I was doing the math earlier this morning, 35 years, I can't believe. In my mind, I just graduated a few years ago, and that's going to be my story. I'm just going to stick with it. But so you may be wondering, how did an education major from UGA become the CEO of a construction company that this year will put in place close to $250 million in revenues, which is something, again, I'm very proud of, but that's kind of, it's a valid question. You may be wondering, how did that happen? And it was a little dot connection. It was a little being in the right place at the right time, kind of a combination of all of the above. But I do just want to say about UGA. So when I was there, I think back on the time that I was there, of course, I loved it very much. And I do think that the experiences I had there helped to really form who I am today. And, you know, not directly, but, you know, whether it was, you know, being in a leadership role in my sorority, whether it was an organization on campus, something in the classroom. Those experiences at UGA, even back then, as my kids say, yeah, when things were black and white, Mom, truly, I think, helped form who I am today, along with my mom. I mean, she was a single parent. She's going to be 97 this year. Marge also gets props on helping form who I was and who I am. But my time at UGA, I think, we've done some projects on the campus, and that's been very rewarding. And so when I think back then, when you have a degree today, I might not even hire myself, which is a really sad thing to say. But where we've evolved in our industry, in my industry, it's very technical. So today we're often looking for engineers, and now UGA has an engineering program. So for the first time, I've been recruiting at UGA, which is awesome because I go to Florida and Auburn and Purdue, and so now I get to go to Georgia, I get to wear the little pin, which is as an alumni, which is awesome. But so what I want to do is kind of take you all through how we started Juneau, how Les and I kind of came to be owners of this crazy company and this industry that, even though I didn't get that degree, it's still something that I'm very passionate about. And, again, being in the right place at the right time has a lot to do with it. So I was 36. Les was probably 38. And we were working for, I don't mind saying, he worked for Holder Construction here in Atlanta. I worked for Heary International, which is a large architectural engineering firm. And so if you were in Terry today and you were in a class and your professor was talking about maybe entrepreneurial, like how you're going to start a company, and in this class I would imagine maybe your professor's going to talk about, here's all the things that are the to-dos in starting a company. There's these, kind of unwritten or written rules. These are all the things you want to accomplish or have on board. And then here's all the don'ts. Here's the things you really want to stay away from, red flags. So in 1997, so that's right after the Olympics, we probably had more in the don't column in starting our company than we did in the do column. And the reason I say that, it wasn't intentional, but it was just how we felt at the time about our company and each other, and what we felt like were the important characteristics to have to begin this adventure journey together. So in the don't column, or in the do column, we had a small amount of boxes that we checked, and in the don't column we had many more. For example, we had no money. We literally had no income that we had saved. Okay, that was terrible, but we didn't. We were living, paycheck to paycheck. So we had no big savings. We had we had a line of credit that was very, very small, and I'm not even going to share with you how small it was, but that was it on our end. Our families didn't have money to invest in us. So we definitely had the box no, we had no capital. So we had to go find investors. So we had a list of folks that we wanted to go talk to. And the first two folks we met with, one was a family member, another probably don't, because you don't go into business with your family. And that was not even my family, it was Les's brother. And then the other individual we spoke to was in our industry, but not in our company. And we went, and so to prepare to talk to them, so again, 1997 was when we started Juneau. And we had probably 4 or 5 months before we actually kind of pulled the trigger and he left Holder. We were game planning. I mean, obviously, we got a lot of advice. So suffice to say, a lot of friends, a lot of family gave us a lot of advice, of which most we ignored. And we, again, fall into the things you don't do when you start a company category. So some of the advice was create a strategic plan, do a pro forma, so to speak, on what you expect your revenues to be, and do it realistically, do it conservatively. So we did do that, and we hired an attorney, and we worked with an attorney, and we worked with a CPA to kind of get us set up and get us kind of moving in the right direction. And so what we had to do, first of all, to kind of entice these two folks to invest in us was present to them and really it was us. We didn't have any projects. So we were selling ourselves and what we believed and what we felt strongly about. So we did, and the good news was they both said yes, and they both invested. So that gave us this great kind of boost of confidence, and we felt, like, we can do this, And so another don't in the don't column was we didn't have any work. So the biggest dilemma was so the Olympics had just happened, and one of the pieces of advice was don't start the company because Atlanta's overbuilt. Look, it's been this crazy ride to get to the 1996 Olympics, which our firms were involved in, and we reaped the benefits and learned a lot and grew a lot in our industry because of the work we did for the Olympics. And I think we got to the point where we said, we can probably do this for other people forever, or we can make the leap of faith and we can do it for ourselves. So again, in the don't box, we had no project that was imminent. We had a opportunity. And it was an opportunity at our church, ironically. And it wasn't like we knew we were going to win it, and so we're going to quit our jobs and we're going to start this company. It was, okay, this is presenting itself. It's an opportunity. And the struggle was, Les was about to get a really great bonus from the Olympic work. And so we passed on that, and he left Holder before he got his bonus. Would have then put us into the good category, because then we would have had some capital to start this whole thing. But we just said, you know what? We don't feel good about working for other companies and pursuing work all at the same time. That was just our struggle a little bit. And so I think an early on leadership issue for us was if we're gonna start this company, we're gonna do it the right way. We're not gonna do anything behind our employer's back, so to speak. And so he left Holder, and we pursued our church project, of which we had to qualify for, and then we got to turn in a price. So that was very exciting, and we did qualify, and we did turn in a price. And then, unfortunately, we got the call, which may sound like it was a good call, but it was a friend of ours who was on the building committee, and he said, I can't tell you in 100% for sure, but you guys had the most competitive price. So I'm just letting you know this looks really good for y'all. This, we're really excited. Les and I are like, yes, we're like high-fiving each other, like, this is awesome. So now we're waiting for the real call, the real, you're in, you want it. And so the chair of the committee calls us, and it was like a week later. So we're like trying to be really calm and cool about it. And he says, well, just have to say, you guys did a great job in your presentation. We loved your energy. We know your parishioners here. We know you'll do the right thing with this project, but your price just wasn't really the most competitive. And I'm sitting there going, he is lying, and we couldn't say anything because we had kind of some proprietary information. So we had to just be humble, and we looked at each other and talk about deflation. So now, another in the don't category is I had just had our third child. So we had 3 kids, a 5-year-old, a 2-year-old, a baby, a 1-year-old. They were 13 months apart. I think, as Marty would say, that's Irish twins. Oh my gosh. So now we have all this happening. We had just bought a house, so we had no equity in the house. We have, bills, we have children, we have, oh my gosh, and we have no project, but we've started this great company. So we looked at each other and we were like, you gotta be kidding me. So we, you move on, we rolled up our sleeves. So again, remember, we're talking to a lot of people, we're networking, we're getting advice. So we had some other really great advice, which at the time I thought was, this sounds really legit and really good. We had many people telling us, Nancy, you need to apply, if you're the owner of the company, 51%, which I was, you need to apply for your female business status. So in Atlanta, you can have minority business set aside and you can have female business set aside. And really what that's, the purpose, and just me Cliff Note versioning it, is it's helping companies that are starting up to get opportunities. And sometimes it's partnering opportunities, sometimes it's solo opportunities. So for Les and I, we looked at that like, okay, this could be a really good entree. And what some of our mentors in the industry were saying was, you're going to have larger construction firms want to partner with you guys because you can bring the female percentage points. And I'm thinking, okay, that makes sense. Or you can pursue work at the city of Atlanta or the airport or different municipalities, and this could be a really boost for your business. So I'm like, done, we'll take care of it. So it's really an application, and you fill out a bunch of stuff and you send it to the compliance office in the city. And we actually went a step further because we're trying to do things the right way. And we were told you need to get an expediter to help you get that through, because there's a lot going on at the city of Atlanta. This was, way back in the dark ages. But anyway, so we have our expediter and things are moving along and we're not hearing and we're moving on. And the next thing I know, it's a few months and we haven't heard about our application and what's going on. So I call our guy and he's like, I'm working on it, which should have been my first clue. So long story short, he comes to the office and he's very nervous and he's asking if Les is in the office. And I'm like, I don't know where Les is. What's going on with this whole application? And he's like, well, let's go talk in your office. I got to share some stuff with you. I'm thinking, I just knew I forgot to get something notarized or I forgot to send in a piece of important paper. Because, this is City of Atlanta, very I's dotted, T's crossed kind of group. And I'm thinking this is on me. I own this because this was my application. I'm thinking, oh, crap. So he's sitting there and he said, they're saying they're not going to approve you as a female business enterprise. And I'm thinking, here we go. What did I forget? He said, no. He said, they think that they know that Les is really the one running the company and that you're really just there for the female percentage points, that you're really not involved in the day-to-day business of the company. And I was so pissed. I can't even tell you. And I said, it's because I have an education degree from UGA, isn't it? I said, I know that that's what those people are looking at. They're looking at the fact that I don't have an engineering degree from Purdue or like my husband, LSU or whatever, construction management degree. I said, can I tell you how much this pisses me off? I said, are those guys there when I work all day and then I go home and I take care of my kids and then I go back to the office and do accounting, which is not my strong suit, but I have to do it because we don't have anybody else to do it. And I'm doing Quicken and all this stuff, which is frightening if you know my accounting abilities. And I'm like, what? How can they even say that? And so I think now I know why he wanted Les there, because he was really nervous about what I was going to do. So he said, you need to go to the city of Atlanta and interview with them. And I said, okay, fine. I'm happy to do that. Let's clear this thing up. And so I went. And, in truth, the gentleman I met with was really just the, box checker guy. He wasn't the main compliance guy who I really never, ever wanted to speak to, because I knew he was the one that was making those comments. So we go through our interview and and he was actually very gracious, and I don't know if he knew all the history or whatnot, but I couldn't let it go. I had to give my dig at the end after we finished and after he had closed my folder. And I said, can I just ask you one thing? And he said, sure. I said, do you think that a hospital CEO is always a brain surgeon? And he kind of looked at me and he was like, no, I don't. I said, okay, good. Thank you, and we got approved. But it was the whole process that we went through that was just so disheartening, I guess, a little bit. And so the way Les and I came out of that was, if we're going to make this company successful, it's going to be on us. And it's going to be how we lead. It's going to be how we pursue work. It's going to be how we treat our clients and treat our employees. And it's really not going to be us depending on other entities to help us, prop us up or whatever. And another side note on that, so we still today, 20 years later, we've been in business 20 years this year, still have our female business status, and of the probably several $1 billion of construction that we've built over 20 years, guess what percentage we've done has been female business set aside? Anybody want to? No Juneau people can answer. Guess how many millions of all that volume we've done that's been female business? Anybody want to throw out a guess? Charles, you can't say it either. 0. Just saying. So, the result of that experience, even though it was early on, again, kind of set the tone for how Les and I were going to lead our company. So we kind of threw ourselves in and we decided we're going to do everything. So it was really, we were in charge of, we had our fingers in, we led in every aspect of our business. And what was really good was the team that we were together, because we were complementary of each other's skills. So here's Les, the technical construction degree part, and here, even though I had been in the industry 10 or 12 years, my expertise was probably more on business development and working with clients to sell them on who Juneau is and what we can do, hiring the right people to execute the work. We kind of shared the financial side of things, but there wasn't an estimate that went out that Les didn't review in detail, and in the early years, he was doing all of those estimates. And, then obviously we hire folks to come in gradually. But the interesting thing was we felt like that was going to differentiate us from our competitors and and the other large construction companies in Atlanta, because here are the two owners, and we were the ones engaged, and we were the ones that were going to meet with the clients, and we were going to the owners' meetings. And you know what? That was twofold. It helped, I think, our employees that saw us on our project sites and made them feel good about we're interested enough to come and see what's going on the job site, and we're there to answer questions and help, with support and what have you. And then our clients, there weren't a lot of other construction companies where the owners were that actively involved. And so even today, and you guys can't tell my competitors this, Les and I go to every interview, and some interviews we're both participative in. I or Les pretty much divide and conquer on our owners' meetings, which we have. Some are bi-weekly, some are monthly. Some are bi-monthly, some are monthly. And that's hard. If we're doing 8 to 10 projects, that's a lot of traveling and touching, but that's because we feel like still that's part of our culture and who we are. And I think it still, even 20 years later, resonates amongst clients and our people and whatnot. But so as we're clicking along with our company, and we're now, we're doing everything because, we're in charge. So probably 10 or 12 years in, the next big challenge I think that I want to share that we faced was, it has to do with people. So people, human resources it's everything. Obviously Les and I are now at a point we're probably at 60, 70 million a year. And so what happened, I think a couple of us were talking earlier in our industry, if you remember when like 08, 09, 10, things really fell off. So what happened in the construction world was we lost a lot of people. And then when things came back, a lot of those people didn't come back. So, for example, with our company, we have a really good group of more senior folks who have been with us maybe 12 plus years. That's a really good core group. So they've got our culture, they know who we are, those are leaders in our company. And then we've spent probably the last 6 or 7 years really focusing on recruiting young construction professionals or engineers out of college. And so now we have this really great pool of kids. I met, just to connect a dot, one of the most darling Auburn grads, and I know, don't freak out, he's an Auburn grad. His mom is a UGA alum, and we hired him last year, and we love Daniel. So just throwing that out there, dot connection. But so we have this young pool of folks that have been with us, 0 to 6 years, and that's a really. I'm going to talk a little bit too about the generation and how we lead with these X, Y, and Z generation folks, which is really crazy. But what happened is the middle management group left our industry, and so we still struggle with filling that void of those folks, because when they left, when everything fell apart, they didn't come back. They're off doing other things. So what we felt like we needed to do to kind of grow the folks under us, and Les and I feeling like we're going to be really good leaders on this, I think part of our philosophy is, while it's really important to lead, and I think, we're all leaders. If you think about it, whether you're leading at home, at church, with friends, if you're in management, you're leading the folks under you, or if you're in middle management, you want to show that you're a leader to your bosses. So we all really lead, but we also want to be led at times. And so Les and I think in the halfway point in our company's career history, in our careers, 10 or 12 years in, we felt like we needed to start relinquishing some of our leadership and giving that to our folks. So this was the hard challenge and hard lessons learned we experienced with that. So in our minds, we felt like the way to do it was, we're going to select in our minds the folks that we think have potential and can really show that they can take on some more. But we didn't spend a lot of time talking to these folks. We just knew them from seeing them every day and seeing how they performed and seeing what they did in their construction projects or their departments that they were running. So what we did was, we gave them more responsibility. We said, hey, we want you to now lead 2 projects because you did that last one, awesome. You made great fee, you're awesome. So now guess what? You're going to be over 2 projects. And over here we were like, gosh, you did a great job in pre-construction and you led a great effort. Now you're going to run the whole department. You've been promoted. And then we said to a couple of our folks, well, you know, we've just acquired a project in Louisiana, and it's a joint venture, and now I need you to go to Louisiana for 3 years and run that because you need to be our ears and our eyes on the ground. And you've been promoted, but you're going to go to Louisiana, and you're going to go to Tennessee, and you're going to go to North Carolina. And we thought that was really empowering our people and giving them the responsibility that they needed. And what happened was, because we didn't really drill into what do you really want to do, are you ready to take on all that, people left. And that sucked. I mean, that was really devastating. And I took it personally. I want every person I hire to stay and work with me forever. I mean, that's kind of the way I look at things. And what happened was, and no offense to the men in the room, because there's a lot of men in the room, and I can say this, I'm not being chauvinistic, but it's because I work in this industry that's male-dominated for a long time. Men, in particular, have a really hard time holding up their hand and saying, time out, you've given me too much. You know, I want to really be promoted, but I really don't think I can. I don't have the skills yet, or I'm not quite ready. That's just a really hard thing for a man to do, a young man in my industry or someone more well-seasoned. And so what happened was we had probably 5 or 6 years where people were leaving, and we couldn't figure out why. Why are people leaving? These are great guys and women, and they're so talented. And we kind of took a step back and looked in the mirror, and we're like, we are giving these people too much, and we're not really drilling into what is it that they want, what are their desires, and what are their capabilities, and all those kinds of things. So not to belabor that, but one really funny question. So one of the things we did was we got better at what we were doing, and we've initiated a mentoring program. So early on, I know this is going to sound crazy, so Les and I, we had like a 360. We went from like not knowing a lot about our employees to we're going to meet with every single employee, like all 85 of them, and we're going to talk to them one-on-one. We're going to spend 30 to 45 minutes. We're going to learn, what is it you want to do? What do you feel like were your good accomplishments on your last project? What do you feel is good about your department? What do you want to do in the next 1 to 2 years? So we did that. It took months. It took months and months and months. But one thing that was really funny was, so we have a concrete company. So for the risk people in the room, long story short, we couldn't pursue work as a self-performed, for the state. We can't do concrete as Juneau Construction, so we started another company. So the gentleman who was running that company, he speaks English, but it's not great, and he's the nicest guy in the world. His son works for us. They're very dedicated. He's been with us a long time. So we're starting this mentoring thing, and so we're working at Georgia Heights in Athens, and that was his project. And I would go to all those OAC meetings, so it wasn't weird that I was there, but I wanted to go meet Tony. So some of the people we met in the office, and Tony I wanted to meet just at the job site. I figured it'd be easier. So Sherry sets up the meeting, and she didn't get into any details. She said, hey, Nancy's going to be there at 10 o'clock next Thursday to see you in the office. So he is freaking out. He is like, oh my God, why is Nancy coming to see me? And I know I heard this after the fact, and then the guys in the job site knew he was freaking out, and they didn't tell him, she's coming to talk to you about mentoring. She's coming to understand what you want to do. So this poor man for a week was freaking out, thinking he's going to be fired. And I get into the office, and all the guys are like giggling and laughing, and I'm like, what is going on? They're like, Tony thinks you're going to fire him. And I'm like, why did you guys let him think that? That is so wrong. And they loved every minute. And so poor Tony comes in, and he's, wringing his hands, and he sits down. And oh my God, I said, Tony, I'm just telling you right now, I'm not firing you. Oh my God, he was just like, oh, Miss Nancy, thank you, And I was like, I said, I'm mad at the other guys for letting you believe that. That is so wrong on so many levels. But anyway, so we did the mentoring thing, and that has really helped in understanding. So now I feel like we have a better pulse on, when we want to promote someone, or when we want to give someone more responsibility. I think we have a little bit better feel for what does that person want. And then also, so we have mentors and mentees. I don't know if that's the right terminology. we're also growing up the folks that are mentors and helping them with their skills and whatnot. So it's kind of twofold. But the whole human resources thing for us has always been the biggest challenge. So, we lost a group of folks. And, again, when I mentioned early on, we did everything. I mostly did the hiring, and then we found out from, I think, some attorneys who advised us, if you do the hiring, you should do the firing. So now I'm like hiring and firing folks, which was brutal. And one in particular, I'll share with you, this was another, probably not my best moment, but so there was a superintendent we had working with us, and actually the project was at Oglethorpe University. And he had been with us for a while, and we had gotten a call that from another employee that suspected that he was using drugs. So that is a huge no-no. Obviously the risk, people appreciate the fact we're a drug-free workplace, and we drug test and we do random drug screening. And so I didn't call him, but I had our controller, and we didn't have an HR person at full-time at that point in our company. And I said, you need to call him and tell him he's been selected for a random drug test. And that's common. I mean, we do that all the time. But normally you just get a thing in the mail. You don't have your office calling you. So he declined to do he refused to take it. And he had some bull crap answer about I'm blah, 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 blah. And she comes in and she was freaking out, and she says, well, he wouldn't go. And I said, well, did you tell him he had to? And she's like, no. I'm like, call him back and tell him he has to, So that was bad on my part. But anyway, so she calls him back. He still said, I can't do it. So basically I called him and I said, I'm going to come by the job site this afternoon. Don't leave before I get there. I need to talk to you. Driving a company vehicle with Juneau smashed on the side, and he has an accident. I mean, I don't need to go into any more details on that. So one of our superintendents who was in the office had heard what was going on, and he said to me, so are you, headed over there to talk to him now? And I was like, yes. And of course, I do have to say, anytime there's been any turmoil in our company, or, my kids break an arm or get stitches, Les is always conveniently out of town. It just has always worked that way our whole lives. And anything, there could be like a bomb scare in our building, or we're having a guy got loose and has got a gun and our building's in lockdown. Les is always out of town. So I had actually called him and said, I got to let blah, blah, blah go, and this was why. And he's like, no problem, good, 100% behind you. I said, okay, I'll let you know. I'll call you afterwards how it goes. So I'm heading out, and this other superintendent in the office says, hey, I'm just going to go with you, and I'm like, really, Todd? You're going to go with me? He said, no, not to go with you to let him go, but in case you need help with getting the truck or whatever. And I'm like, okay, fine. So we go to Oglethorpe, and he's there, and he's a big guy. And so I walked up to him and I said, look, I hate to do this, but I have to terminate you. It's effective immediately. I mean, I don't mess around. I was like, I need your keys. You need to get everything out of your truck. So today's your last day. You need to go into the office whenever it's convenient next week. This was like a Thursday or Friday, and get paperwork done, but you're terminated. And he's looking at me like, right, like, wait, who are you and what, So the first thing he says is, does Les Juneau know what you're doing? And I said, okay, really? It doesn't matter if he knows or not. I'm terminating you, but yes, he knows, but I'm still terminating you. I need your keys. And now he's really pissed. He said, so what are you terminating me for? And I said, well, I'm terminating you for insubordination. And he puts his hands on his hips. He says, don't use those big words with me. And I thought, this was meant to be. This is just so meant to be. And I said, okay, well, you were asked to do a drug test earlier today, and we suspect that you've been doing drugs and have drugs in a company vehicle, and you declined. So that's cause for me to terminate you. So again, I need your keys. And I'm like standing right there at him. I'm not backing up. And he's pissed. Now he's opening the truck, and he's throwing stuff around. He's throwing papers out of the truck. And so when he opened the back of the truck, there was a handgun on the seat. And so this is when my buddy Todd gets out of his truck and comes, because he had been watching, and he comes over. He walks in front of me. He says, you need to go get in your car right now. He said, I don't think anything's going to happen, but I'm not taking that chance. So you need to go get in your car right now. And our superintendent who I terminated was just gone ballistic. And you know what? I'm thinking, no pun intended, I'm thinking, look, I got 3 kids. I got a husband. This is goofy. I don't need to be, superwoman. So I went and got in the car, and I watched, and he yelled and screamed and whatnot, but he left and he gave Todd the keys. And so, the moral of that story is, I think you have to stand your ground for sure. And, you get tested, and then I think you come out of those challenges and those times a little bit stronger, a little bit better, a little more confidence. I mean, think about it. If we were leading and we only experienced good times and everything was clicking along and everything was rolling, you're not going to grow as a leader, as a person, as a mentor, in your family, whatever. So when I look back and see the crazy challenges that we've had and experienced, the ones that were kind of insane off the charts are the things I think that made us stronger and kind of honed our leadership skills, and we've grown as a result of that. But then to kind of fast forward to today, so it's really funny because we have twice a year we have meetings. They're called town hall meetings, and gosh, early on, Les and I did the whole town hall meeting. We'd talk about everything. Remember, we're doing everything. And so we finally got to a point a few years ago where we said, well, we need, our operations, director to do this, and we need our pre-construction director, and we need our HR manager and business development. It's like, Les, I said, we get to sit in the front seat. We don't need to be up there leading everybody. Again, we're trying to relinquish some things. And it was hard because Les really likes to do everything too still. But that was one thing that I feel like it's really rewarding to see our folks lead. And they all do a great job. I mean, I wouldn't change that for anything in the world. But what's really funny is, so we also do strategic plans every year. And remember, back when we had to go get our 2 investors, I had to do part of the presentation, and Les did part of it with our strategic plan in hand. I still have our 1997 strategic plan. It's so frighteningly scary to look at, but it's cool and I do look at it every now and then, but I've kept every strategic plan we've done. And in the beginning, we did them all, and now we have our folks do them. And now we've even evolved to, at first Les and I would meet we'd be in each other's office having a cup of coffee, figuring out what we're doing next. And then we got a little more organized, and then we started inviting officers, and now we have senior managers, and now there's probably 12 people in the room, and it's department heads and that. And to me, that's like so exciting. It's like I watch these young folks, and it's just very rewarding to think that we've kind of come like in a really full circle kind of a way. But so in preparation for one of our strategic plan meetings, Les said, I'm going to Google this Gen X, Gen Y thing, because, I think this is big. I'm like, really, baby? And then you're going to tweet about it, So I'm always giving him grief. That's why, he has me around, I think, because I give him. But so he's like all about Gen X and Gen Y. And so he comes in and he's discussing in one of our kickoff meetings. And I think everyone in the room was like, really? This is Les Juneau? He's discussing this? And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to really mess with him. I'm going to say, okay, your next Google, Gen Z. You got to do the Gen Z, babe. And he won't even know what I'm talking about. But really, that's one of the things that in our officers' meetings we do talk about. And just really quick, and I want to open it up for questions if anybody has any. You can ask me anything. The whole Gen Z thing is really kind of interesting because I have 3 kids. 2 just graduated from college. 1, Terry, grad in May. Congratulations. She's going to start with some crazy construction company this summer. I don't know how that happened. But the whole Gen Z thing, which we know is like this whole next generation, if you thought the folks you work with now are technically savvy, these kids, they're doing so much with social media and everything is, they don't want 2 screens, they want like 10 screens. It's just overload. It's like, I'm going to have to like quadruple my budget for software, or not software, but hardware, because, everybody wants 45 monitors in their office. And now standing desks, that's the next thing. Because Sherry, my assistant, is like, okay, I hate to even send this email, but this is now the 95th person that wants a standing desk. I'm like, why can't people sit anymore? What's wrong with sitting? Why does everyone need to stand? Come on. But anyway, I'm teasing. But so it's just this whole generation looks at things. They're very entrepreneurial. They also are not into longevity. Like, I want everybody to work with me and be my employee forever and be part of our Juneau family. And I mean, I think our HR gal, Jackie, who's here, is probably like, guys, if they've been somewhere for 3 years, that's a really long time. Because all our old timers look at these resumes. I'm like, this guy's been like 5 places, and he's been there 3 years and 4 years, and he's never been anywhere like 8 or 9 years. And she's kind of like, it's because they don't do that anymore, Nancy. And I'm like, okay, I'm getting it. But so we're really, that's why we have all these young people helping us, because Les and I are seriously bringing our average age down in our company. But I mean, I'm sure they're keeping us around for some reason. But I think, that's kind of our next, if I look at what my next kind of level of leadership is going to be, it's how to lead this crazy generation, or these next, few generations coming up, which are going to, run through our company and fuel and keep us going and sustain us, for the next, 10, 20 years and beyond. So anyway, so that's my story, a little bit about me and leadership, and I'm so excited to, and I just have to say, go Dogs! I couldn't say that at Georgia Tech. I'm going to go like buzz. But anyway, so if anyone's got any questions, yes. Yeah, and then you guys can go back and look at this again at some other time.
Thank you. That was great.
Sure.
Did I hear you say that you got the minority certification, then you bid on Zero Business?
Well, we didn't bid on Zero Business. We passed. We would go to pre-proposal meetings and look at the projects that the City of Atlanta and the airport had. And we chose to pass on those projects for a number of reasons, whether it was the dollar amount, the schedule, and not that it was in a negative way, but as a business owner, so just so you know, my goal is to make money. I'm a for-profit, all right? So I want to build something quickly, and I want to expedite it. I want to get in and I want to get out. And one of the first pre-proposal meetings I went to at the airport, I'll never forget, it was to do, so at the airport, they have all the, which you probably they don't want to advertise, a bunch of fire stations everywhere. Okay, so they were redoing all those, and it was probably like $6 or $7 million worth of work. I mean, but back then that was going to be a big project for us, and they wanted you to do it in like 3 years. And I'm like, 3 years? I'm like, I could do this in 18 months. And so I asked the question, so if our schedule is compressed and we can do this quicker, isn't that a plus to the city? No, ma'am, we need this done in 3 years. So I'm not, that was kind of the message at the time. And then we also pursued work as a partner for some of the larger, big, like Skanska, and we might have even teamed with Holder, Whiting Turner, Hensel Phelps. So we did pursue work with some of those big partners on a team. We just never were on a winning team.
Well, one more, you just said they wanted you to do it in 3 years. You could have done it in 18 months, and usually road construction projects take 3 years, and they fix the bridge in 30 days.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome.
Why is that? Why? What is that about your industry?
It's just the mentality, and you know what? I can't try to figure that out. It's just too mind-blowing to me. Because again, at the time that we were looking at work with the city, I went back and told Les, I said, if we have to depend on bidding work like this amongst folks who don't have the same mindset that I want to do this quicker and better and faster for you and get, like the bridge thing, that was, I thought, awesome, because I was a big naysayer, didn't think they'd get it done, but props, they busted it. And the mentality at that time with the city was, no, we have our schedule and we can't go off of that schedule. And so, you know what, that just wasn't a good fit for us as a company and a culture, and so we passed on a lot of that work. And even recently there was a big Fulton County library project, which is hard to believe they're even building libraries anymore, but it was the same thing. They would not consider a condensed schedule. They would not consider any fast tracking, and it just didn't make sense to me. And some of the municipalities are still that way. And that's probably just the bureaucratic thing, and it's beyond me to try to figure that out. But it was very frustrating, and we tried, and we looked at things, and we've bid in Gwinnett County. We've done a lot of work, and that's just a competitive bid, and we were low and won those projects and built them, and it was great. Now we probably negotiate probably 80 or 90% of our work, although in Alabama, those are big the schools there, the universities at Tuscaloosa and Auburn, they bid everything. That's legally how they're set up, whereas here we're the Board of Regents, and so you interview and you're hired by your qualifications. And we've bid on and won $80 million programs in Alabama, and we're fine to do that as long as it's a level playing field. So that was a good question.
So just curious, so Patrick Schulte with Synovus. I'm just curious, big picture wise, being a leader in the company, being a leader in the industry, in the space, and so on, how do you stay attuned to the key indicators? What are you watching that really help you shape your vision for what the direction you want to go in the next 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and so on? But what are you paying attention to with so many different news outlets and variables and data
So
points?
that's a really great question. Believe it or not, a lot of what we base decisions on for kind of future is our subcontractors, because they're the ones that are supplying the steel, supplying the lumber, supplying the concrete. And so some of the cost indicators for our world have to do with what our subs are telling us things cost. And we'll challenge them. I mean, we'll kind of say, is that real? And we're part of an organization called Associated Builders and Contractors, which is fabulous, and I'm the chair of that organization this year because I don't have enough to do. So, but it's important because that organization is really attuned to what's going on in the market, and it's not just contractors that are members and subcontractors. We have architects and engineers. So now we have the whole industry, and there's a lot of sharing of information, and we have all those members on the board. I think, our leaders, also a lot of our clients we talk to in the private development world, when, we just finished the Battery at the Braves, the Battery Atlanta, and so that developer, fabulous client, and so we're constantly asking them, are you guys doing like 4 projects next year? Or are you doing 2 projects next year? So that's often an indicator. We've got a relationship, believe it or not, with the Federal Reserve. I've been to some of their meetings, and they come and interview us, and then they share that data. They talk to a number of construction companies throughout Atlanta, and then they share that data. And that's always really good data about, percentages and the financial world and where things are going, because that then drills down into our lenders and, who's funding construction projects, and is it still going to be robust, or are things pulling back? And then, our public clients, are they still floating bonds to projects, or are they dipping into their foundations? So we just, through our network of our world, kind of, if that makes sense, but a little bit of all of those things.
What portion of your business is in the sustainable construction area, like LEED certification, and is that the trend?
That's really a good question, because probably Marcy, 7 or 8 years ago, most of our college campuses we work on required us to build either a gold, silver, platinum LEED project. And so for those of you who don't know, that's just a level of achievement of how sustainable the building's going to be. And we have our folks that got certified and have that certification, and I think that was really important. And now the trend here in Georgia, they have Georgia Peach, which is kind of a minimum of requirements, which every project we do has that. But it's interesting because the Emory's and the Georgia Techs and the UGAs, that trend has shifted. So now the big thing is well buildings, and it's just one of those evolving kind of buzzwords. But now what a well building is, how long term is your building going to be built? Are we building a 100-year building that's going to be around? Are we building a 50-year building, a 25-year building? And so typically the feds would build a 100-year building, GSA, the state agencies build that robust of a building, and college campuses build 50-year buildings typically. So I'm not sure, how that's going to evolve, but definitely the LEED certifications and accreditations that were so important 6 and 7 years ago have really fallen off. But what's more important to our owners now, especially the public owners, are the systems within the building. And, Wi-Fi, oh my gosh, you know, you can't go on a college campus and build a building if the Wi-Fi is not the most robust thing in the world. And same with think about the world in which we're building right now, a lot of college campuses, a lot of multifamily off-campus housing that competes with they're trying to get the kids off the campus into their apartments, and so the amenities are over the top, and Wi-Fi is one of the biggest things. Those guys don't care about sustainable buildings because often they want to flip them and sell them. They're not going to keep them in their portfolio. But the schools want buildings, believe it or not. We just built, it's going to open in a couple months, a dining facility at Tech. It's a 25-year building. They could take it down, and it's unbelievable. It's steel, it's glass, it's wood, and in Tech's mind, it's going to be outdated in 20 to 25 years, so it'll come down. It's crazy. Charles, be nice.
So I understand that you were a little sister in a fraternity, and I wanted to know how that worked into your leadership skills.
I can wear a mean elf costume, let's just put it that way.
Seriously, a quick last story. So background, I worked for this
I've
lady
known
for
Charles,
15 years.
he married my best friend, and so we've known each other since UGA days.
But a less story. So about 10 years ago, he was chair ABC, I think it was. So one day he's come out of a meeting, and they're talking about trends and employment, and he's a little disturbed because he's hearing that the workforce is getting ready to deplete. So it's on a downward spiral, and he calls one of the other board members, and he goes, Sam, they're dying. And Sam's over in Alabama in the mountains somewhere, and he loses signal, and he calls back, who's dying, Les? Who's dying? He says, the workers, they're dying. We don't have anybody to do the work. So anyhow, intro, what as y'all look at, and y'all have always kind of gone out of the box and cutting edge, what do you see that we should be doing to attract people into the skilled trades so that we've got people to build the projects?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I think it's going to take companies like Juneau and our peers leading with whether it's schools. I have been on the board of Gwinnett Tech, and as Dave McAuliffe knows, I worked with him for many, many years at Gwinnett Tech. And so now the technical colleges have a big role, I think. Our industry, remember that's that lost generation of folks that left. And then, so we still have the management level, and then the whole labor, which is what you're talking about, is a whole nother level, because we can't get our subs that are masons, and we don't use welders so much, which is sometimes one of the milestones that folks look at, but carpenters, masonry folks, we can't get those, our subs can't get those folks to come back into this industry to work, and that's our lifeblood. And don't get me going about the whole illegal thing, because that's devastating. And we do E-Verify, we hire legal folks only, but our industry gets a bad rap because, it's like they go with the crew to film the project, and it's just a bunch of illegal people on the job, and that's not always necessarily true. But back to your point, Charles, I think companies like us have to step up and lead and hire these folks as they come out of the trade schools and the technical colleges, for one thing, and partner with these schools to help them understand what are our needs. Do we really need welders, or do we really need carpenters? And help the schools focus on what's the curriculum, kind of help craft it. I was working with Athens Tech before their president left to take a job in Tennessee on just that. What's your curriculum? Because if you don't have the curriculum and the professors in the schools, how are you going to get the kids to come? And then if you've got the companies that are partnering with the schools that are going to hire you, and I don't care whether it's Caterpillar or Juneau, there's still a skilled labor need. And it's a big issue. I think ABC tackles it regularly as well, but that's a good question.
In your story, Booth Perry with Point North Insurance Group, in your story about the superintendent that you had to terminate, it seems pretty obvious that you definitely value the risk management aspect of your company. Throughout the beginnings to now, obviously, is that something you grew with as the company grew? It's something you started to realize? And in that aspect, what was one of the biggest turning points, major, issues you had to address during that phase?
Oh my God, it's like I planted him to ask me that question. I love this when it comes together. So we've hired not one but two Terry grads that are risk grads that have finance risk degrees. And what happened as we evolved and we grew, so if you think about it, we have an insurance broker, as most people do, and then we have the insurance company. So for many years, we relied heavily on them to help us train our folks, monitor our risk. And so for us, our risk is involved with, so sure, there's the safety on the job site kind of risk, but then there's the subcontractors and, do they have the right insurance? Do they have the right coverage? And that's a lot. When you're doing 3 projects, it's manageable, but when you're doing 8 to 10 projects, that's a big volume, so we realized as we were growing, first of all, it fell with our bonding, our insurance folks and our agents. They helped us originally, and they were good to do that, and as we grew. Then we kind of put it more on our financial director, which was good, but things were falling through the cracks, and we were missing things, and, a sub didn't have the right insurance, and if there was an issue, then, we're on the hook. So then, probably 3 or 4 years ago, we started interviewing at Terry, and we hired our first risk analyst, and he's been phenomenal. I mean, he does everything from our fleet to all of our subcontractors and insurance and validating that every contract that we sign, is I's dotted, T crossed. That's huge. And I know that sounds minor, but it's a big deal in our world, because when you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, and I want every person that goes to my job and works on my job to come home, my people and my subs folks. So now, because of our volume of work, we've hired our second Terry risk management person, and he's going to report up under Justin. And that's probably going to serve us well for the time being. But I mean, if we need to hire another person, we will, but just because it's that important for us. And so what started off as we relied on external consultants in the beginning grew into our financial folks will handle it internally, and some of our project managers and that, but that just became cumbersome, and so now we have 2 full-time folks that do that. So that was a great question. Any other questions?
Questions? Well, help me give Nancy a round of applause.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Don't go anywhere. And it is our tradition to give our speakers this beautiful sculpture by Loretta Eby. And today
Nice.
is for you.
Oh my God, that's
It's
beautiful.
red and black.
It's got my name on it. That's beautiful. It looks like a big jelly bean. That's awesome.
Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you.
And
Appreciate
thank
it
you
so
guys.
much.
We'll see you guys in August.